I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome to the Doctor Who Show Series 11 Hot Take Reviews live from Australia. Well, recorded, but it's live to you and me, Rob. How are you?
Exactly. I am really here, Dave. I am here. I am well.
Yes, and I literally closed iViewer about 3.5 minutes ago from watching The Woman Who Fell to Earth, also known as the Egg of Terror.
Very good. I can say I closed iView on the television. I watched it with my wife probably about 15 minutes ago. But that's the second time I've seen it today, Dave.
Oh, well, you have the advantage of me. It'll be interesting to see whether there's anything that you picked up the second time around that I note.
I watched it once today at work on my phone. Literally, I watched iView on my phone. I have an iPhone Plus, an 8 Plus, so it's a fairly large screen. But it wasn't the best experience, but I just had to see it, and then I watched it again tonight.
Excellent. So, Rob?
Yes?
Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor.
She is.
Her first episode has been broadcast.
It has.
You've watched it.
Twice.
What did you think?
I thought, and I've got to be very careful with my words because I don't want to play all my cards up front, Dave, but I think that was a competent, nay, good introduction story.
Okay, that's actually very similar, I think, to my views. I'll be a tiny bit more expansive and then we can just smash into this.
Okay.
I agree it was a very good episode. I wasn't throwing my arms in the air, punching the air, excited by it. However, I totally get why somebody, particularly a fan, would be. Mm-hmm. And if people are, and I think a lot of people are, totally understand why, totally with them, particularly young fans, particularly new fans. I certainly didn't think that it was bad, but I can see things in there that if some people did think it was bad, I could understand and empathise with their opinion as well. And I'm not in the middle. I'm more to the good than the bad side. I'm sort of, a bit further that way, but I really do see how this could play out in different ways for different people. You are right, though, Rob. This is such an introductory episode. Like the pilot, like Rose, like the Christmas Invasion, it's very much in that family.
Oh, absolutely. And I need to say up front, I have a problem with episodes like this in general across the board, whether it's, I don't know, Big Bang Theory or pick any show that has sort of a pilot episode. Buffy even. I adore Buffy, but it has very much a pilot episode as well. And it introduces the concepts and the friends and all of that sort of stuff. And I guess it's because I'm a fan and I already know who the friends are. I know who the companions are going to be. I just want to get on with things. For that reason, introductory stories always sit a bit oddly with me. Probably the big exception would be the 11th Hour with Smithy. I watched that and at the end of it I thought, I think I've just watched something very special there. That's probably the exception in New Who for me.
I'm totally with you. I think we can really only assess The Woman Who Fell to Earth as an introductory story, and I think a lot of the faults that I'm going to identify with it do stem from it being an introductory story, and that's why, in terms of judging Jodie's Doctor and in terms of judging the new series, we can't remotely start to do that because, imagine judging Pertwee by Spearhead from Space or Tom by Robot, and goodness, imagine judging Capaldi by his first 2 episodes where he was terrible.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And look, I said this last night on the Doctor Who Club of Australia's Facebook. They went on there and put a message up saying, look, in the next 24 hours you'll see the episode. Some people might like it, some people might not. Let's be respectful, blah, 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 blah. And I sort of tagged in there and jumped in and said, yeah, and look, for the love of all that's holy, don't judge the whole series for good or bad based on this one episode we're about to watch. You'll do yourself and the show a disservice, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So if I could perhaps use an example here to sort of kick our discussion off, but move from exactly that point, looking at the 3, what I assume are now going to be the regular characters, Ryan, Graham and Yaz, I thought they were all very well realised. I thought they were all very well acted. Ryan particularly, I thought he was very well acted. And they all have some sort of background and a sense of humanity. We know, they went to school together, or we know they have this background, etc. It's not fully fleshed out, but there's some good stuff there that I was enjoying and thought was worthwhile.
Yes.
On the other hand, they had a lot of really clunky dialogue. Lots of, as you know, I've been married to your grandmother for 2 years, or, oh, you went to school with me, and that's right. There's lots of really clunky dialogue. And that, to me, kind of sums up this episode. A lot to love, but this kind of introductory stuff did pull it back a little bit. Resonate with you, Rob?
Look, I agree with everything you just said. How did you feel when Jodie would launch into, it's all about change and you've got to respect what you were before and you can become anything. And it's like, yeah, we know this is a metaphor for the show, Chibnall. Please just move on.
Look, very similar. And again, Jodie's a really good example. There were lots of really cool lines, lots of incredibly cool moments, lots of great stuff from Jodie and from the Doctor. Totally enjoyed it, but yeah, every sort of 10 minutes or so, there'd suddenly be a moment of, I'm now going to explain the concept to the audience, and that's fine. I get it, I accept it. If you're going to have a jumping on episode, and this really has to be a jumping on episode, I have to put my 30-something years of fandom in a box and accept that some people have never seen a sonic screwdriver before, that some people don't know what a Time Lord is. That's fine. It's another example of how you and I can assess the episode and go, okay, that was a bit tiresome for us, but we're not knocking it, and we accept that a new audience member would have totally appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. And before we go any further, in case people are out there thinking, oh my God, Rob hated it. Oh, Rob, what are you doing? No, I actually thought she was great, and there were many, many fun bits in the story that I really liked. It's just these introductory stories. As you say, we're fans. They're not entirely for us. I'm really looking forward to next week and the week after that, once things get going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you a bit of a sight into the not-too-distant future. When we get to our sports desk, Rob, and the sports desk will be back, folks. When we get to our sports desk, both my play of the day and my foul of the day are going to be Jodie Whittaker moments.
Yeah. Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
So, yeah, look, it's very focused on the intro. Let's talk a bit more about the Doctor. What did you think just of what we know of the 13th Doctor, Rob? Or do we know the 13th Doctor now?
Well, she makes it pretty clear that she's still cooking, Dave, And,
I know.
And she's still maybe relying on her past selves, and she's still finding herself. So we might not have seen her to her full extent, but even still, what I saw, whether she was being a bit Matt Smith-like or whether she's being a bit Capaldi-like, I didn't mind it at all. And you know what? When she fell through that train roof and the Doctor Who theme started, and it was like a Bond movie all of a sudden, I got very, very excited. And I actually wish the theme had gone a bit longer.
Yeah. I don't know why they feel the need to not have the Doctor pretty much all together and in their personality by about, 15 minutes into a 1-hour episode. Pertwee is the Doctor by part 2 of Spearhead from Space. Tom is the Doctor by about 10 minutes into Robot. It's kind of only from JNT onwards that suddenly we have this thing where the Doctor can't be the Doctor straight away, and he has to have post-regenerative enoughness. And
yeah, I'm woozy. Oh.
Yeah, I didn't need any of that, and I don't think that a new viewer needed that either. Why not just give the new viewer the character straight away? I mean, if you're doing a new series of Star Trek, you don't have the captain come in and be, on happy pills for the first episode, and then you realise what the captain's like next one. I don't know why Chibnall chose to do it, and I would have thought, as a fan who is on record as not being a huge fan of the John Nathan Turner era, I would have thought that any hint of J&T post-regenerative script annoyances would have been gone. I was really curious that he did that.
Yeah.
That little rant aside, she was incredibly Doctorish. She was incredibly likeable.
Yes.
She was a little bit... How can I put this? She was a little bit manic for my liking, and I wonder if that's going to be a post-regen thing that gets pulled back.
Mm-hmm.
And again, and maybe this is a point I'm going to make a couple of times, or something that's going to be a bit of a theme for my comments, most of her dialogue was good, but she had some incredibly clunky lines that were sort of like somebody sitting there going, look, I like this moment, but is it doctorish enough? You probably need to add more doctorishness in this one. And, sort of overspicing it a little bit.
Yeah, I see that. Absolutely.
Hey kids, this is a doctorish moment.
But again, I think we're both well, not dancing around this topic. I think we're saying it pretty clearly. It seems we're both enjoying what she's doing on the whole, even though we can spot these issues. And again, we've only seen one episode.
Yeah, there were some lovely moments there. I think her first interaction on the train was really, really good. There's another moment I'm going to mention because it is my play of the week later on. I thought most of her confrontation with the monster was really good. I thought the way that she was allowed to have a bit of alien knowledge but also worked the plot through with the audience was a perfect balance. And she was engaging as an actress. So all very good things. I just don't think her personality is quite settled yet, and I don't think her dialogue is quite settled yet. And I suspect, like a lot of this stuff, when they relax into the series and she relaxes into the character, that will improve. I'm very confident about that.
Yeah, in past series, we've known a bit more about how it was filmed and what went down and such. This one was a bit shrouded in mystery. So I don't know if she recorded this one first or whether this was the one she recorded second or third. I think Smithy got to record first with his Angels story, and I don't think he recorded the 11th Hour until his second or third outing or something. Certainly Davo didn't record Castrovalva first, and so on.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have an answer to that either.
Yeah, no idea. It was you shrouded it in mystery too well, Chivers. We don't know the answer here.
That's okay. What points have you got for us, Rob?
Dave, my points go all over the place. I liked, as you mentioned a moment ago, her encounters with the alien. I loved the way she called him Tim Shaw, even though he had a slightly different name. And she's going, Tim Shaw? Tim Shaw? I found that quite funny and not too over the top.
And I believe the actor was actually credited as Tim Shaw in the credits.
You're kidding.
I believe so.
I think as a adversary for a first outing for a Doctor, I think it was pretty good. Usually the Doctor's up against something a bit naff, especially in New Who for their first outings, sort of these one-off, monsters that we never see again. I thought this was better than, say, the Scovox Blitzer in the Caretaker episode with Capaldi, and I think it was better than some of the ones we've seen in the past, but it wasn't top shelf. It wasn't like a fantastic adversary. They don't waste those in stories like this.
In my notes, Rob, I've written down the word monster with 2 exclamation marks and 3 underlines, which is a reflection of just how excited I was that, oh, cool, there's a conventional Doctor Who monster in this, and God, it's been a while.
Yeah. Oh, look, I completely agree, and I think it was, as I say, it's done better than recent ones, but just not quite top shelf. But I wasn't expecting that in this episode.
No, and I just want to make note of a few antecedents that I did note as I was sort of watching this episode unfold with the monster. The first thing I said when I saw his appearance was, oh my God, it's the game from Babylon 5. And then when he started speaking, I thought it was the Hudson android from the Red Dwarf episode last day, the one that comes to replace Crichton.
Yes.
And then when they did mention that it had taken the tooth, I thought, they're doing Predator, and this is going to be a hunt. So I snapped onto that really quite quickly. And that, I think, does make the point that, again, this is really aimed to be incredibly accessible to a general audience, and particularly to a younger audience. I think they really are stretching hard, and admirably so, to get that younger audience in there. Somebody who wouldn't sit there and go, they're doing Predator. They'll sit there and go, oh, cool, what's he doing the tooth? And that idea of the hunt. Imagine not having seen the Predator and then seeing this for the first time. And the cool monster and the teeth and the reveal of the face and all that sort of thing, and killing the guy with the salad. They were great moments that I think I kind of enjoyed as just a fan of kooky sci-fi.
Yeah.
But I imagine a 10-year-old would really enjoy.
Do we need to start a Chibnall body count?
Yeah, I wonder that, because for an episode that was in some ways very light-hearted and kind of little funny lines and little quibs and all that sort of thing, and throwing bikes off mountains, the death toll was surprisingly high.
So we have the train driver.
Yep.
We have Salad Guy, who you mentioned. Yep. We have Grace.
Yes.
When she falls. And do you think it's clever, the episode title? Grace was the woman who fell to earth, not the Doctor.
I did. The only problem is that when you have 4 regular characters and only 3 of them make it to episode 2...
Yes.
You kind of know what Grace's fate is going to be from the start. I don't know how well known it was to the general audience that only 3 of them make it, but I think certainly you and I, Rob, were very aware that Grace is not in episode 2. And unless she was going to be that, Rose's mother character that comes back maybe at the end of the series, which it seemed unlikely given that Graham was her husband.
Yeah, look, I thought that was maybe a possibility at first, because obviously I was thinking these exact same thoughts. But the more she was the adventurous, go-get-'em one, I thought, yeah, she's going to die. Because she can't be around while we've still got Graham possibly having to have a bit of an arc where he maybe gets a bit braver or something like that. We can't have her around while he's doing that.
No, and nor could we have Graham going, I'll get in the TARDIS and go on an adventure, and her going, nah, that's not for me, I'll be sitting at home.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't work out there. So, yeah, that to me, her death was less impactful than it should have been, because I picked it from about minute 2. In contrast, however, to the other death, which is the security guard granddad who gets to do the whole... I'm really fond of my grandkid, and it's really nice you call him granddad, and I really appreciate it.
Well, that's number 4 for our body count.
Brutally slaughtered.
Yeah.
Which again, for a show that is going for a very family, kid-friendly tone, these were moments of real nastiness, and I like it, and it's going to be interesting to see though if they continue to have that sort of diarchy of tones, family-friendly, kid-friendly, light and entertaining and fluffy on one hand, and then moments of real brutality, or if it's going to go in one direction or the other, or both, depending on episodes. But I thought there was a real contrast in there that worked for me, but seemed to be pulling in different directions.
Yeah, and as I say, that was death number 4. I think it was 4 deaths total for the episode.
Yeah, that's... No, the guy who stole the egg.
Oh, of course. Okay, 5. Do I hear 6? 5 deaths for Chibnall in this opening episode.
And we're assuming Tim Shaw survives.
I think he did. I mean, Jodie, that was very interesting. Jodie got upset with that chap for kicking him off the gantry and saying that wasn't your, right to do that. I thought that was a very doctorish thing to do, sticking up for the baddie, essentially. But I think he disappeared rather than died. I think he sort of dematerialised somehow. Yeah,
so in that case, we'll lock it in at 5, unless anybody out there says we've missed one, and feel free to tweet us and we'll update you next week.
Now, Dave, Ryan's disability, dyspraxia. This is like a lack of coordination. What did you make of this? I have my thoughts, but I'll give you the first bite at it.
This, to me, actually felt very Sydney Newman.
Okay.
It felt very... educational, without being and kids, today's episode will be brought to you by dyspraxia. It was very such that an audience, particularly a younger audience, would walk away having learned something, and I thought that's actually very traditional Doctor Who.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, and I can buy into that completely. I made the point that I think it's really good to have in the show in general. I think kids can learn from it too, but don't let it become a predictable plot point. Conversely, let's not forget it, and I don't think they will. I mean, they showed him at the end there just absolutely slamming into the ground time and time again off his bike. So I don't think they'll forget it, but at the same time, I don't want every episode to hinge on Ryan having to swing across a chasm, or Ryan having to walk across a tightrope, or, something where his dyspraxia... Will he or won't he fall? Because, he's got dyspraxia, kids. Let's not let that become the trick with Ryan in every episode. That's my only fear with that. Otherwise, I think it's great to have disability in the show.
Yeah, you want him to be a guy one of whom's characteristics is he's got dyspraxia, not he's the guy with dyspraxia, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a very action-packed episode of Doctor Who, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. One of my wife's main comments afterwards was, hey, that moved really well. The pacing was really good. Even when I wasn't too sure about things, it just kept moving and carried me along.
Yeah, look, I did feel it could be tighter. I'm not a fan of these 63-minute episodes, which I believe, and it could be a rumour, but I believe that's so they're eligible to be shown in cinemas in certain countries.
Right, yeah, okay.
I don't know if that's just a apocryphal or urban legend, but I believe that's why all these first ones have to be over 60 minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that this would have been better at 50 or 45. There was stuff in there I would have cut, particularly the first 15 minutes, that could have been cut down quite a bit in my view, particularly some of that really clunky, as you well know, dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But that's okay. I thought this looked great. I thought the colour scheme and the way that it was filmed, particularly at day, was really good. The night filming was really good.
Do you know, I think the pod looked a bit cheesy in daylight. Under artificial light, when that kid got it into his garage, I thought it looked really, really good. But out in the daylight, I wasn't sure whether it was the colours or something about it. It just looked really fake.
Interesting. I didn't see it that way. I saw it as being really out of place.
Okay. That's like two sides of the same coin, I think.
Yeah. Yes, it looked fake, but it looked fake because it was unnatural.
Yes, I can go with that.
So, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. So let me just explore this issue now, Rob, of my big negative with the episode. There are minor faults in introductory and everything. I felt that the biggest problem with this episode was some of the clunky dialogue and the stilted plot points. There was just a little bit too much dialogue that felt unnatural and moments that felt unnatural. One really good example was the guy whose computer was on with the "If I'm Dead" video all sitting there waiting to be viewed. It just felt too cheap, too easy, and there were too many of those little things. I get maybe that they're keeping the plot very simple for a new audience, and that's okay. I'm not smashing this episode for it, but I hope this doesn't continue, and it's going to be something I'm now on the alert for. Being too harsh, or are you with me?
Well, at the same time, do we necessarily want it to go into really overly complex arc-type things where arcs overlap over arcs, and at the end of 3 or 4 years you're just so confused and you realise half the arcs haven't been tied up, and you get upset? You know, it's like, do we want too simple or do we want arc? I guess we want somewhere in between.
Yeah, I think so. And particularly if you can let the characters be a little bit more complex or do something. For example, Yaz, who was very good in the first 15 minutes, but then really kind of vanished from the plot a little bit.
I agree with that, actually.
That could have been a really good moment for her. You know, they find the body, they find some ID on it, and she says, hang on, I remember that name. That's right, his sister vanished 3 years ago. There was a missing person hunt when I first joined the police. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, and join those dots. You know, the predator got her, etc., etc. That, to me, would have been a level of interest more than, hey, he's left a video here that says, if I'm dead. I mean, you can avoid the cliche a little bit, can't we?
I actually like that idea, yes. There was a missing person hunt, and then the doctor turns around and says, a hunt. And, oh, perfect, Dave. That writes itself.
It does. So that's the example of where I don't know to what extent it was a deliberate choice to just go, you know what, we're keeping this plot mega simple.
Yeah.
And in future episodes, we'll see an escalation and more complexity. If that's the case, then I totally will buy into this and accept that that's the first episode and that's what happens. If in 3 or 4 weeks, Rob, we're sitting here and I'm going, wow, this is still really, really simple, I may be a little disappointed.
Oh, look, and I think that's completely fair. You know, all we've got to do now is sit back and wait and see what happens. It's all we can do, really.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up, Dave, the music, and I don't think we'll talk about the theme music yet, but just the music in the episode. And again, I'll refer to my wife here. At the end of the episode, she said, I liked the music in that. It was atmospheric.
I thought it was good. I actually didn't notice the music until the crane scene. At which point I suddenly thought, oh, this is actually really good. And I think that in a television show, what you want in the music is for the bulk of it to just be in the background and accompanying the image, but to turn the dial up a little bit for the more dramatic moments. And I think this is exactly what happened. The music was not intrusive. It was very background. It wasn't noticeable in a good or a bad way. But for those dramatic moments, like the stuff on the cranes, suddenly it ratcheted up a bit and it's telling you the drama's going up and it's giving you a bit of a music. And I thought, ooh, this is really, really nicely done. This is really classy.
Yeah, look, I agree, and I'll point out there is, before the crane scene, a really good bit of music, and that's when she's making the sonic screwdriver. I noticed the music there, especially the second time around.
Okay, I didn't so much, mainly because I was kind of just like going, oh, for God's sake, it's a sonic screwdriver scene. Look, that's me. Look, Rob, I think I'm on the record as being very cynical about the sonic screwdriver. I totally imagine fans at home and kids at home would have been jumping up and down and cheering at that scene. And that's fantastic. They're going to go out there, they're going to buy Jodie's sonic screwdriver, they're going to play within the playground, and they're going to come back and watch next week, and that's fantastic. It just wasn't my favourite scene, but that's because I'm a cynical old bastard and it's not all about me.
Well, you know, I'm a cynical old bastard too, but I didn't mind that scene for one main reason. I'm surprised you might have overlooked this, Dave. In the past few series of Who, at least the past two sonic screwdrivers, the TARDIS has magically created it for the Doctor. And I think in Smithy's case, it even popped it up out of the console, like, here, have a gift. And I thought that was cheesy.
Next in the range of products that you can buy, kids, I've produced,
Yeah, exactly. Whereas here, the Doctor was like, what have I got? And scrounges around in this, man cave, in this garage, finds some bits and pieces, and forges this thing, actually out of Sheffield steel. Heats up all those old spoons and cutlery to get the Sheffield steel. And I thought, this is the Doctor actually making something. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah, look, you're right to pull me up on that because I actually did write that down in my Doctor notes. Yes, it was really good to see the Doctor being technical and hands-on and playing with circuitry. And yeah, so that aspect of it was really, really cool. I just had images of the episode ending and then, kids, Jodie's sonic screwdriver is available for £9.99 at all good toy stores. And that to me brought the moment down. But again, that's about me, not about the show. And I totally get why. And the kids will love it. Good on them. Great.
I did like, though, where she stepped out, lit up the screwdriver, and it went out almost straight away, and she gave a little, ooh. I actually laughed out loud at that moment.
Yeah, that actually wasn't too bad. The moment that I laughed out loud at was when Carl decides he has to go and run away from the monster, and he pops his head up, and before he goes and does it, he puts his hard hat on.
Yes.
That was a laugh out loud moment for me. I really enjoyed that.
I hope that's not the last we've seen of Carl. I hope if they go back to Sheffield that they somehow bump into him again.
I thought the actor was really good, but I thought he was a bit of a one-note character, and if he comes back, I'd like some more notes.
Okay. While we're chatting here, Dave, do you know I've actually got the overnights for this episode?
No, I didn't.
The overnights, Dave, 8.2 million or 40.1% share.
That's very impressive.
It is, isn't it?
I thought it was going to be about 9, but others on you said 6, so it's fallen at the upper end of that guess.
Yeah, and look, to be straight down the line and fair about this, we expected this. This is the first for a new Doctor, first for a new showrunner, first female Doctor, etc. Of course,
first on a Sunday night.
First on Sunday night, of course. There's going to be that interest factor, that different day. Of course, this first episode's going to be huge. But I think if they can hold within 1 million of this, say if they stick around 7 million, 3, 4, 5 episodes in, geez, they might be onto something.
Yeah, that is a really impressive. And if they can, I mean, the series will likely slide as it goes on. That happens with TV shows and maybe peak at the end. But yeah, if they can sort of stay north of 6, that would actually be really, really impressive. I mean, that would be a loss of about 25%. That would be okay.
It's still well up on where they've been.
Exactly right. So yeah, the retention factor is going to be really interesting, and 40% share is a really cool figure. And of course, we all know that goes up with additional viewing and all the other things that go on. Although, how many of those will be people like yourself, Rob, who've watched it twice?
Yeah, well, indeed.
But to make that point, I mean, something we've been saying, I know, for about 18 months on the Doctor Who show, is the idea that if Doctor Who's going to be appointment viewing, that brings an audience in for an evening as a family viewing show, which it wasn't doing in the Saturday slot anymore. That's a reality. You can defend it all you want and say, well, it was getting an extra 1 million viewers on. No, that's fine. But if its role is to get viewers watching the BBC of an evening around the campfire, so to speak, then this has, at this stage, achieved that mission, and the move to Sunday has been totally, totally validated.
Oh, I completely concur. No, it's really interesting to see where this will go. So, Dave, we've talked a bit about each of the companions in different ways. You were just mentioning that Yaz sort of started off strongly, petered out a bit. You've mentioned that Ryan was interesting. I've mentioned Ryan's dyspraxia, and we've mentioned a bit about Graham. Out of the three, are you picking a favourite at this point in time, or one that you think you might, sort of come to really like over time?
At this stage would definitely be Ryan. I think he was a very interesting character and the best acted of the three.
Okay, I'm going to go with Graham.
Okay.
Not just because it's the name of my cat, but I think he might just have that slightly cynical edge, that slightly, you're having a laugh kind of thing. I know they don't say that up in Sheffield, that's more of a London thing, but you know what I mean. His whole, there's no such thing as aliens, well, that's been put paid. But I'm sure there are other things he doesn't believe in, and other things he'll be cynical and disbelieve, and I think that's kind of fun.
I didn't dislike Graham, don't take this criticism too far, but I was worried a little bit too often he had the same criticism I had of Nardal, but in a very different way. That idea of he's the one we give the wisecrack to. He's there to be the funny one.
Right, okay, yeah, and possibly that's how it will play out. Yeah,
and I'm very careful about saying that because he did have some very good emotional moments, and really he wasn't badly acted at all. I thought Ryan was better, but that's, you've got to rank him, and somebody comes first, somebody comes second. Yeah. But I did worry that just a few too many times I was like, are you just going to be the gag guy? And I hope that that's not the case. I think that they can do more with him.
Yeah,
but it's the first episode.
That's right. And look, as the series goes on, I'm sure we'll be saying, oh, well, this was the Ryan episode, this was the Graham episode. At least I'm assuming that's what we'll be saying, because that's how these things tend to play out. So they'll probably all get a go in one way or another.
Yeah, and there'll all be moments where they're the one that is with the Doctor in the A plot, and the other two will go off and have a B plot, or maybe they'll be split and have a C plot, and all that sort of thing. Speaking of, we haven't mentioned the TARDIS.
No, we haven't, because it didn't come back.
Yes, that's an interesting creative choice for me. I do like the idea that if you're going to relaunch a series with a lot of change in terms of cast and tone and feel and music, which there was, I would have liked the familiarity of the police box there.
Okay, maybe they're trying not to overwhelm the audience.
But I guess that's my argument though, that if you're overwhelming the audience and you're going, there is a lot of change, isn't a police box, even just the image of it, maybe at the end or something, or that just reassures an audience and brings them back to this is Doctor Who.
Yeah, but then we've got to play the game of, it's bigger on the inside than the outside, and what's a police box, and it's like,
yeah, but if you're going to do it in this episode, because we've already said this episode wasn't as good as it could have been because it had to do the introductory stuff.
Yeah.
So get it all out of the way.
Yeah, rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Look, we obviously have different views on that, and I will be interested to hear our audience's view on that. Particularly as I suspect a lot of our audience obviously are ongoing fans. Did they miss the familiarity of the police box, or were they just along for the ride and didn't even notice?
Well, look, on that note, Dave, shall we take a step over to the sports desk?
I've been looking forward to this. Back we go.
Here we go.
Right, Rob, we are here at the Doctor Who Show sports desk.
Ooh, it's a bit dusty.
It is a bit. It's been since Christmas.
Yeah.
But we have our 3 categories plus our score to give out. So, Rob, for those who are new to the Doctor Who Show's Hot Take reviews and have not visited the sports desk with us before, we have 3 categories, and I'll explain them each as we go. The first is our play of the week, which is for the moment or the event or an act or a line or a play in the episode that you thought was the real highlight. Rob, what was your play of the week?
Dave, mine was anytime Jodie Whittaker did some physical comedy. And we spoke about her holding up the sonic screwdriver and it going out and her giving a little, ooh. But just the way she was moving, the way she was quite comedic throughout the episode without being over the top. She wasn't in sort of Matt Smith territory. I just thought, yes, I can already see, I think, what Chibnall saw in her on the Broadchurch set when she'd be, mucking around and making people laugh and being a bit goofy. I can sort of see that, and I think I like it.
Interesting. Very, very reasonable. My play of the week is actually very similar. And it's the moment where the Doctor, confronted with the DNA bombs, identifies them, looks around at what everyday objects she has to combat it, and then reaches for the mobile phone and does doctory stuff to it to then be able to use them to go and track the monster. Yeah. I thought that was a really good Doctor moment without being a forced Doctor moment. It was the Doctor using modern technology. This is the equivalent of Pertwee rewiring the radio to go and do something else, or it's that sort of thing. And I thought it was really good, really Doctorish. It explained the threat to the audience in a really good way without talking down to them. And I thought that was a really good moment, and for me it was the Doctor's best moment.
What did you make of the fact that Ryan sort of figured out what she was doing straight away?
And again, that was a really strong moment for him as well. That whole sequence to me was really, really good.
Okay then. Moving on to our foul of the week, Dave.
Yeah, so this is a moment where, look, we're not criticising the whole episode for it, but it's a weak moment we think needs to be expanded. So I'll go first, and it's actually a moment you've already mentioned, Rob.
Okay.
It's the "you had no right to do that" moment.
You're kidding.
Because of two things. Firstly, the Doctor having just effectively not killed, because she does make the point that he had the choice and he detonated the thing, etc., etc. But she has set it up, and it's implied that those things are fatal. So she has set him up to die, and he's sort of dying, and to then turn around to the guy who kicks him over the thing and go, well, it's all right when I do it, but not when you do it, didn't sit well with me. And I also thought it was just a little bit too forced as a Doctor moment. And it just to me felt like Doctor by numbers. And it just grated me the wrong way, which is a shame, because I thought the whole concept of using the monster's trick against them was incredibly Doctorish. And it was Doctorish without being forced. And it was Doctorish without big signs that said, look, this is Doctorish. And I thought, that's really cool and Doctorish. And then to have the other line, I just thought, oh, too far.
My take was that the Doctor had obviously wired him up with the bombs and would detonate them if she had to, but was telling him to just go home. And if he would just leave, then they wouldn't go off, they wouldn't be detonated, everything would be fine. So I think by him, Carl, kicking the alien off the gantry, Carl was very definitely trying to kill the monster, whereas the Doctor was giving it a chance. It was threatening with bombs, and would kill it if she had to, but I think was giving more of a chance than kicking off the gantry, which is giving it no chance.
I totally get that reading of it, and I think it's a correct reading of it, and I will be not at all surprised if a number of listeners say to me, Dave, that's really unfair, you've misread the scene, that's not how it should be. That's cool. All I can do is I can tell you how I felt, and when I had that moment, it grated on me. I thought it was just too far and a little bit hypocritical.
Oh, look, I think it's there to really signpost what the Doctor's like for new viewers. I think it was there for a reason, for sure.
Yep. No, I accept all of that. It just fell short for me.
Okay, my foul, Dave, takes place around the same part of the episode, actually, up on that crane. And it's where the Doctor decides to do a big run-up and jump. And in my brain, this went into slow motion. When I watched it the second time, I realised it didn't. But it just seemed so cheesy that the Doctor backed up and then started running. And I thought, oh my God, no, don't, no. This is really cheesy. And it was probably the only cheesy moment in the whole episode, so it's got to be my foul of the week.
Yeah, I can respect that. I think it would have been my foul had she sort of miraculously made a physically impossible leap. The fact that she fell short and then had the gag about the legs being too short, I mean, okay, you're regenerating. I get it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't great, but I thought that did at least save it from, had she suddenly leapt, tall buildings in a single bound, that would have been my foul, but it fell short. But no, I get where you're coming from on that one.
Yeah. Alrighty. Finally, our
our player of the week. And I think this one is fairly straightforward. The character, production unit member, or actor who you thought was the player of the week, the most valued player, the one that's getting to keep the ball at the end of the game. Rob, who was yours?
For this week, Dave, it's a no-brainer. I'm giving it to Whittaker. I think she had the hardest job here, and she took to the role well. I think the others each had challenging roles in their own way, but I think it's a lot safer to step into the role of Yaz or the role of Ryan and just do a good acting job in it than actually stepping into the shoes of the Doctor and being the first woman to step into the shoes of the Doctor and be playing the Doctor in a post-regeneration episode, etc., etc. I think it's got to be Whittaker.
Yeah, look, I'm the same. I started off about 20 minutes in. I was like, okay, this is going to be Whittaker. 20 minutes later, I was sort of umming and ahhing and going, oh, I'm really liking what Ryan's doing here. Do I give it to him? But then in the end, I agree with you. You can't not give it to Whittaker. She did land in this part. And for me, the thing that sums it up most is that I like Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor more at the end of this episode than I liked Peter Capaldi at the end of his first episode. And if that's the benchmark you're passing, then yeah, that's a pretty impressive start.
Wow, that's really impressive. I've got to say, I didn't mind Capaldi after his first episode. I think it was after his second that I was a bit shaken. Was that the Dalek one, the second one?
The second one was the Dalek one. And I went from being not sure about Capaldi to being quite disliking of Capaldi after the second one. So hopefully Jodie clears that bar next week. But no, I was a lot more comfortable with her than I was Capaldi. And if she's performing better than Capaldi after an hour, well, kudos. Well done. Happy to say that.
Now, I believe we've also got some feedback, but before we get to it, maybe we should just wrap up the episode in our own words and maybe even give it a score. For me, Dave, I think this was solid. I think there was some great moments. There were some ropey moments, as we've discussed, but on the whole, it was solid. Of the new Who intros, I think it's behind the 11th hour for sure. It's probably on par with Deep Breath for me, at least, because I didn't mind Deep Breath, but it's certainly ahead of the Christmas Invasion. Maybe it's on par with Rose as well. It's what I'm getting at is that it wasn't bad. It was quite all right, compared to the other introduction stories for other New Who Doctors.
Yeah, I'm very, very similar to you. We can have our different personal rankings of introductory stories, but this is definitely playing in the same field. It's definitely in the same group. It's above a couple, maybe below a couple. It has done the introductory story really well. It suffers as a story in its own right because it's doing the introductory stuff, just like Rose did, just like the Christmas Invasion did, and frankly, just like Robot did, and just like Castrovalva did. So that's fine. That's fine. It's not the best episode ever because it has things to do and it does them well. It is ticking all the boxes it needs to tick. I hope that having ticked those boxes, we now get on to some more adventures with a bit more bite.
Yeah, now that's fair. For a mark out of, well, what will we do marks out of, Dave? 5 or 10? If we do it out of 10, if we do it out of 10, I'm going to do half scores. If we do it out of 5, I'll do whole scores.
I'm going to give it a mark out of 10.
Okay.
And I'm going to give it a 7.
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair. I think that sums it up for me. There is a lot more that this can do. The series can be better than this. I think Jodie Whittaker can be better than this. She had a good start, but there's a long way to go. Enjoyed it. Entertaining TV. Let's see what happens next week.
Absolutely. I'm excited where this can go. I don't want 7.5 to seem like a low score or seem like I'm not effusive. I think this was a great start. I think it's got some really good places to go.
No, a 7 is me making room for what I think is going to be better down the track.
Absolutely.
So we've had feedback from one person, and that is a friend of the podcast, Richard.
Hello, Richard.
Who did watch it this morning before work. Well done.
And your co-host on, of course, Blake 7, Spacefall.
That's absolutely right. And the Goodies Pirate podcast. Don't forget to get your Goodies DVDs and listen to our podcast all over again.
Absolutely.
Richard says, it's very much a set-up introductory story and thus very light with a fairly simple plot. Jodie Whittaker is actually not bad. Overall, probably holding off judgment for a few weeks until the series is really underway, which I think is sort of said in a sentence what we've just said in 47 minutes.
Yes, I would say so.
So, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, good feedback there, Richard. And people out there, if you do have feedback, just throw it through to us as soon as you see the episodes, and we'll try and work it into these hot takes.
Yes, so our intention, as much as the real world and life doesn't get in our way, our intention is to do these on Monday evening Australian time. We may have to move some to Tuesdays sometimes, but if you work on the assumption by dinner time in Australia on a Monday we're recording, then get them in before that, or otherwise we'll just happily read them in the next episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the last thing we probably have to mention is, what the hell was that end of credits trailer?
Here's a bunch of actors you don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to be fascinated to hear some of our friends on UK podcast comment on this as to whether they said, actually, no, there are a lot of people that a UK audience would get. I recognised a total of 2 names in that role, one of whom I already knew was going to be in it, and the other whom I went, really, them? And it wasn't a great intro for me.
So it would have been Alan Cumming, who you know, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Was it Lee Mack?
It was.
It was? Okay. And I also know Art Malik, because Art Malik's been in everything. One thing I noticed...
Sorry, yeah. Art Malik was one of 2 names that I've thought, okay, I know if I IMDb them, I have seen them in something.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sitting there going, I know who that is.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The only other thing I noticed was how many people in that post-credits, or the credits, I should say, were from the subcontinent. Are we having an episode in Pakistan or India or something? Because there was a lot of subcontinent actors, Asian actors, in that spiel.
That is true. And in the pre-publicity, they have talked a lot about going back in time to some of these sort of things. So maybe we're going to see some of these sort of older empires from Asia or South America or something. That could be a clue.
Yeah, I just noticed that it really stood out to me. I thought there's a lot of Asian actors here, which is great, but it was just surprising to me how many there were.
Yeah, I was just too busy counting how many I knew, and it didn't take much because it got to 2.
Dave, something we haven't mentioned that was playing during that scene, the new theme music.
I think I like it. I'm not going to judge it until I've seen it actually roll over the title credits at the start of an episode.
Yeah, I'm assuming what we were seeing with the credits, that sort of swirly background, might be a hint as to what the opening credits are like. I love the use of the old theme music updated. Again, yeah, I think I'd like to see it in context properly, but that wasn't bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I'm saying nothing more till I've seen it introduce an episode.
Fair enough. Well, look, until next week, I've been Rob.
And I've been Dave.
We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye! You've been listening to The Doctor Who Show, the podcast where too much Doctor Who is barely enough. Subscribe to us on iTunes or listen through the website at www.thedwshow.net. Write to us at hello@thedwshow.net or send us a quickie on Twitter @thedwshow. Facebook.com/The DW Show is also a good place to find us if you're so inclined. Our version of the Doctor Who theme arranged by George Locke. Look him up on YouTube, folks. This podcast is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. Doctor Who, all names and sounds, and any other related items are trademarks and or copyrights of the BBC. All other trademarks and trade names are properties of their respective owners. The official Doctor Who website can be found at www.bbc.co.uk/Doctor Who.